Hi guys, it's April. I have an unnatural tendency to scare the bejeebers out of myself, and I don't know why. So I will do this review the same way I do all of my other reviews. I will have the non-spoilery section up front, followed by the spoiled film dump afterwards, because I always have words. Words are things I have, and I need to get them out. Now, I received the return by Rachel Harrison as an art copy for a free and honest review, and that in no way sways my opinion on this read. I wanted to get that out there so that you guys have all the information and all the facts. But the return by Rachel Harrison is a story of a woman named Ellis whose friend goes missing for 2 years, when one day she randomly shows up again with no memory and no idea of what happened. But after her friend's return, some weird things start to happen. It's safe to say that this book falls in the mystery horror thriller genre, which is why sometimes I wonder why I like to scare the bejeebers out of myself, because there were some parts in this book that were just downright gross, in a good way, if gross can be good. A majority of this book takes place in this very, very bizarre hotel, and I think that's to pay homage to a lot of horror stories. I do like the friendship dynamic that is written between Ellis and her friend Jules, who disappears, and then two of their other friends, Molly and May. Seeing that group dynamic is actually very wonderful, and just seeing how they feed and interact with each other. As for the rest of the story, there were points where I was really, really invested in this story, and I had anxiety, and it was grossing me out. But at the same time, the fun of reading this genre is trying to figure out what is going on. Unfortunately, very early on, you know exactly where all of this is heading. It's just more of figuring out which aspect that the author is going to take with this kind of horror. I wanted a little bit more build into the mystery, into figuring out what's going on, and not be fed so much of it. There were a lot of things littered throughout that right away you knew were going to be important. They were played up a little bit too much, and they didn't leave you room for trying to figure things out, which for some readers that might be what they're looking for. That is not how I go into these things. Like I said, I really like picking the story apart and trying to figure out what's going on and which pieces are actually telling the true story. That isn't quite what this is. This is more of setting you in this eerie location. This is more of giving you an eerie backstory. This is more of having weird and bizarre things happen and just mind trip. It's a complete mind trip, which was fun, but not all of what I wanted. I wanted a little bit more thinking involved. But I do have to say, I really love the cover. So if you're looking for something to completely gross yourself out and just have a really bizarre quick read, this read is probably for you. But if you want something that leaves you guessing a little bit more, this is not your kind of read. But this is the point in which I'll just start putting words out into the universe with no rhyme or reason, and probably having a lot of spoilers. So if you plan on reading this book, let me know and then come back and we'll start a conversation. Otherwise, I'm just gonna let all of it out. Like I mentioned earlier, there is not a lot of mystery suspension built. There are a lot of clues that are coming up that are very, 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 very obvious. You know something is wrong right away. You know how it's kind of connected to Jules returning. You know that people are being murdered. And yet it's almost as if the characters are pretending to be blind, that nothing is going on, when obviously all the clues are right there smack in the face. And sometimes it's hard to see all of this stuff playing out in the story and being like, this is too obvious. This is way too obvious. Yeah, the stuff coming from the vent is obviously not rust. It is obviously blood. And all of these weird and bizarre smells are probably not a good thing, and yet we kind of just try to gloss all over it because, hey, we haven't seen Jules in 2 years. She looks like crap, but let's not mention anything because, you know, she's been through a lot. Maybe she shouldn't be having a girls' weekend. Just an idea. And another thing I kind of wanted to pick upon before I wrap up this thing is the hotel where they stay at is the oddest and bizarre thing I have ever read about. I know it's almost playing homage to a lot of Stephen King's like Rose Red and that kind of odd and bizarre mansion style where things just trip you up and confuse you, and they were kind of going for that, but making it a hotel bed and breakfast with all of those weird and bizarre themes with all of these. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, maybe it's because I've never really experienced that kind of opulent world that I can't relate, and it seems really odd and bizarre, especially in the middle of nowhere. Wasn't a huge fan of the setting, I guess. I think that's where I'm trying to go with this. But I do have to say I would like to stay in that pink room. I think it's the Juliet room because it just sounds really amazing and I like the color pink. Tell me down below if you have read this book and what your thoughts are. If you had to sleep with the lights on, there were moments where I contemplated that. But tell me down below, and of course, if you'd like to stay up to date every time I upload, subscribe, and I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.